All right, and welcome. I have a meeting with Phil Blackmar, and we're going to talk about pressure. Mostly because I'm teaching some sort of I'm teaching competition casters and a few very high level, and how to deal with the pressure in competition. And he's obviously the guy to talk to because he was a golf pro on the PGA Tour, and he spent, his professional career dealing with pressure. So it'd be very interesting to chat to him about that. And I don't think it's just pressure of competition casting. It's also any sort of pressure. It can be the pressure of taking a shot when you go on your fishing trip and the tarpon swims past the boat. That's pressure. Pressure of taking an exam. Anytime you cast can be a little bit difficult, right? Especially when it means a lot to you. And so I think it's really a mental game. And so I want to talk to Phil about that. Unfortunately, I've got the time zone wrong, and I'm an hour early. So I'm probably going to lose light unless Phil wakes up and gets my message and joins me with his morning coffee. But I think it's going to be very interesting to chat to Phil. He did send me some stuff earlier, or maybe a year ago, a year and a half, on his thoughts on that. And so I like to talk about that. The other thing I like to kind of talk to him a little bit about, but I'll try and work it into the conversation somehow, is there's a little blog entry on his website where he talked about uh, he talked about hitting the ball into the lake, and then the following year he did the same thing, and then he just started hitting balls into the lake during the competition. So I definitely want to get hold of that and talk about that, because I think that might tie in quite nicely to understanding pressure, and it'll be interesting to hear what he thinks about that. Now, he may be completely the wrong person to talk to. And I'm looking forward to talking to him. And it will probably be daylight for him and then dark here, but we'll see. We are way off topic. So I thought it would be interesting, as we know, to talk about the mental game
Uh-huh.
in fly casting. And so as a lead up to this, I've got a few fly casting athletes competing in the world championships coming up. But I've actually got quite a few competitors as well. And it'd be interesting to talk about how to prepare for that. But I don't think it's just applicable to them. I think it also applies any time that you're under pressure, like a tarpon is swimming past a boat, and it can be a relatively easy shot, and everything, the mental thing gets in the way, and the fly doesn't end. I mean, I see it here all the time with snakehead. It's an easy shot, and the fly goes somewhere or another, and it doesn't go to the fish. But I think in competition, it's particularly from what you've done in your career. I would imagine that's very much based around the mental game, because every shot matters, and I
Well,
mean, every shot's important.
there's a famous quote that says 95% of golf is mental and so is the other half.
Right.
It really is. And the hard thing in fly fishing is very similar, and casting is similar. In that golf, where other sports you react to a moving person or a moving ball, in golf the
Mm,
ball is sitting still, so it's waiting for you. In casting, the fly is not going anywhere until you do something to it. So time, in a sense, almost becomes your enemy because you have enough time to think about it. And when you start thinking about things, that's where you get in trouble. But I've been thinking about for a few days about this conversation and
yeah.
how to phrase it and preface it. I think that really, when you're talking about competing, like you are with your students that are training for the world championships, that sort of
Mm,
thing, you're trying to find a sense of focus, calm in the middle of a chaotic atmosphere, and that's hard for people. And most people, to find that focused calm, will try to avoid what's going on. Well, I'm going to ignore that distraction. I'm going to ignore that distraction. I'm just going to do this. I'm only going to think about this, and I'm just going to be nice and smile, and I'm going to be, happy. And that works to a certain extent, but once you become overwhelmed with the situation or the moment, now you're lost. So you have to be
yeah,
much more prepared than that.
yeah.
So
And
there's
I
lots of
think
things.
preparation, I think, is part of the key in this, right? I mean, it's not just turning up and expecting to do well, because you won't. It's about preparing for it. I mean, even if we talk like 3, 6 months out, what would sort of preparation techniques would you recommend?
Well, I think that it's important, number one, that you embrace it, that you understand how important it is. And it's not something, it's a skill to deal with these things. And it's just like throwing distance, it's just like throwing accuracy. You can't just show up and okay, I'm going to do that. And 3 days before the competition, start working on it. That's not going to work.
No.
It has to become part of your life, really. Um, so what you got to do, you have to have an idea about where you're going. And I like the idea of the article I sent you about flow state. I like that because you want to be in. Everybody has. If you think about your best competition, when you're at your best, typically you're focused, but your body, your eyes are focused, your mind is focused, but your body is free.
Yeah.
You can't throw a long ways. You can't throw a distance if you're tight. You can't have any tension. It's got to be loose and
Totally.
free completely. You got
Yeah.
to be reactive. Your mind has to be reactive. People don't think about this. They think that if you were to make an 80-foot cast, they would say, well, every cast is the same. But that's not true. If you think about it, I'm going to make an 80-foot cast. There are slight variances in timing, in tracking, in what the line is doing, in a gust of wind. All these little things, very, very minute, but there are changes, and your mind has to, at a subconscious level, has to make adjustments to account for those changes. And you
Yep.
can't do it consciously. As soon as you start trying to say, okay, do this, do that, do this, you're lost because the mind is too
Yep.
slow consciously to make these adjustments. So you got to be reactive subconsciously, and you do that by turning off the words. You do that by maintaining pictures and feels because those are subconscious. And so the first step then in this whole process is understanding that you're not getting on the blocks and all of a sudden inventing this 130-foot cast or 40-meter cast. You're not inventing it. You're trying to remember it that you've done it before. And the
Yep.
memory allows you to be loose and free. And so it's this understanding of where you're at. So if I asked you, Paul, when you had your very best competition in distance, let's just stick on distance right now, your very best competition in distance, how did you feel emotionally? What was your body language? What were your eyes like? What was
Well,
your tension
I
level?
can tell you what it feels like for me, and I told this to some of I think maybe both of them, these ones competing. When I stand up on that platform, I feel that I'm standing on top of the world. I feel that everything slopes away from me. I think the entire reason for evolution was to put me on this platform so that I can actually throw my best and line everything around that I can reach with the rod, right? With the line. That's how I feel when it's good. All right. But that's the feeling I want to create. I don't want to feel that, well, I don't, I feel that I'm above all of that. I don't know. How does that feel for you? Is that a similar thing in the golf?
I think that's a great picture. I think it's a wonderful picture because you're embracing the moment, you're embracing
Mm.
everything about it, and you're using the moment to lift you up emotionally so you feel a certain way. In our best performances, we have a certain emotional attachment that's not anxiety, but it's in that article I sent you. They were talking about they measured great athletes at these moments having high levels of dopamine. Dopamine makes you feel excited and good and
Mm.
whatnot. And so I think that feeling like you're on top of the world and you're above everything else and you're meant to be there. You've created this picture for yourself that makes you feel emotionally the way you want to feel. That's a great picture. Now the
Mhm.
question is how do you get there more often? What do sometimes you're there, sometimes you're not. So how do you get there more often? But the first step is
I
doing
think
what you just did.
Yeah, I think you have to train it. I mean, I have all of my students now who are training for competition. I have them actually, during the lesson, we're going to say, right, we've got 2 minutes now. I want to see your longest cast. I want you to imagine that you're in the competition. So many don't even do this. They just sort of work on their casting. And so it automatically puts some sort of pressure onto them. But I really think they have to, talking to them, and hopefully we get this out of this, is I think they have to sort of mentally put themselves in that situation and really want to be there. Really, really,
It,
really, they've got to believe that that whole competition is for them.
if you look at take, for instance, if you look at special forces and how they train, they do redundant situational training so that when they get in those situations, it's like a second nature. Things just happen. They don't have to think. Tiger Woods, I have a video that Tiger did when he was younger, which is fascinating. And he talked about how he remembered getting ready for the shot. He remembered pulling a club. He remembered walking into the ball, but then it's like it blanked out. And the next thing he remembered was seeing the ball leave. That he trusted, that he empirically he trusted the training that he did. Now, his dad was special forces, so he was taught this. And so the more you do it over and over, your goal in preparation is to do it over and over enough so that nothing surprises you. You know everything, Paul, before you ever go. If I said, okay, you're going to go compete in the World Championships next year, and I said, okay, what are the sort of things that might interfere with your performance? You could list a litany of things. Okay, there's my list. Those are the things that might get in my way. There's a certain wind direction I don't want, or there's, whatever it may be, or my cast doesn't feel quite right. My timing feels a little off right now, or my balance doesn't feel quite right. I don't like this guy. This guy's over here watching me, and I feel pressure to perform in front of him, or whatever it may be. You know all these things. So now that you've got a list of things that might bother you, you do exactly what you're talking about. You put yourself, okay, you don't like competing in front of people. Right now, there's 1,000 people sitting here watching you. You feel it. Can you feel it building up? You feel anxiety, and you try to simulate that as best you can. One great way to simulate that is the body reacts to outside stimuli in a way that interferes with you. Is your heart rate will go up, your blood pressure goes up, you get more anxious. All these things start to, right? You're not ready for it. And one of the things that you can do with that is to do exercise and then go practice. Sit there and do 15 jumping jacks, and then grab your rod and say, okay, now I need to make a cast. Your heart rate's up just a little bit. Your blood pressure's up just a little bit. Now I've got to narrow my focus, and I've got to feel this cast and make it, even though that's that way. That's a great way to prepare for that.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
But the key is, I think, it starts with the very beginning of it, Paul, starts with no matter how you might want to feel emotionally in this moment, we're all a little bit different. So you can't teach cookie cutter and teach everybody to be the same. We got to allow the freedom for you and I to be a little different, for whomever, may be, to be a little different. But there are certain common threads. And one common thread is great competitors under pressure are able to focus and relax at the same time. Think about that. For most people, that's an oxymoron. I'm going to focus. They don't understand the difference between effort and focus. It's not that you try harder, you focus harder. You remember the cast before you make it. You remember what it looks like. You remember what it feels like, but you're not putting in words. There's no words. It's just a memory. And then as you remember it, you allow your body to loosen up and free up. But your mind, you see these guys are really great competitors. You can see it in their eyes. You can see it in your eyes right now. Look at your eyes right now. See how focused your eyes right now as we talk about it? I've asked doctors. I had an oral surgeon. I said, tell me something. Doc, you're scrubbing, getting ready for a particularly difficult case. What do your eyes feel like? And nobody's ever asked me that. Let me think about it for a minute, because that's, they feel kind of laser-like. I said, yeah. I said, what about your hands and your shoulders? And your breathing, how's that? Says, my breathing's just relaxed and slow. My hands are nice and loose. I said, but your eyes are laser-like. Yeah, So I'll tell you another story. And this one, a couple stories. I'll tell you just one right here. This really depicts it well. A good friend of mine, Mike Alaska, he's maybe elected in the Hall of Fame of golf instructors here in the U.S., possibly. Very good teacher. He's a really good athlete. And growing up, he was a downhill skier, competitive skier. And so I asked him, and he has struggled in golf in those pressure moments like we're talking about. So I asked him one night, I said, Mike, tell me something. You're in the blocks getting ready to go down this hill, haul ass down this hill. I said, are you focused? Well, yeah, I'm focused, but it's not like golf. It's more of an awareness. He says, I'm aware of what the turns are going to be. I'm aware of where as the race begins, I'm aware of where my body is, where my skis are. I'm just really very much aware of everything going on, but I'm not telling myself what to do. I'm reacting. I said, okay. I said, are you afraid of falling? He goes, no, you learn that falling's part of it. So you just, that's just part of the deal. So you're not afraid of falling. I said, how's your body? Is it relaxed or is it tight? No, my body's relaxed. It's otherwise you can't ski. You can't move quick enough to, going 70 miles an hour down the hill. You can't move quick enough. I said, so you're really focused and aware, but your body's really relaxed and you don't have any fear. You ever play golf that way? Well, no, how can you do that? Man, it's different. I said, why is it different? I said, do me something. I said, I want you to sit there and close your eyes and take yourself back to a race. Pretend you're in the blocks, getting ready to go down. Remember the smells, remember the sounds, remember everything that you're doing, and just make yourself feel like you're getting ready to ski down that hill. And when you're done, I want you to open your eyes. It's okay, I'm there. About 2 minutes go by, and he comes back. It's okay, I'm there. I said, you ever play golf like that? Well, no. Again, how do you do that? I said, you just did it in 2 minutes. You made yourself feel that way. What if you did this drill every morning and every night for 5 or 10 minutes a day for 6 weeks? Do you think you could do it quicker? Well, yeah, sure I could. I said, that's how you do it. Right there. That's what you do.
Brilliant. Yeah,
And that's
brilliant.
what we're talking about. And so often, so many of us have had experiences that were really good in other aspects of life, whether it may be skiing or some other sport, or maybe your occupation, maybe you're a doctor or a surgeon or something like that, or anything else. You can reach to these other vocations or other things and actually find the secret for you for this.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I mean, if you watch like the rugby kickers, when anybody kicking a penalty goal or something like that, the ones who do it all the time have a little routine where they're obviously going into this kind of mental state that they've done in practice hundreds of thousands of times, if not more. And I think having something like that because I was saying to them, you get a minute before you cast to get all your stuff sorted. So you have a time to do something, and it can be physical or it can be checking things. You have, or getting into this state this flow state that you're looking for. I think that would be the way, obviously, to make use of that time. I think that's brilliant. So what about when it starts to fall apart in competition?
So that's one of the things you prepare for. Most people prepare, they think that you prepare by only focusing on doing something good. Most people think that if you're going to meditate, you meditate on something good. My son was a baseball player. He played 6 years in the minor leagues, professional baseball player. And in talking to scouts, they want to see a player struggle watching, because they want to see how they handle it. They think is a really big deal. How we handle things that aren't going perfectly defines how good you are, not how good you are when everything's perfect. Everybody's good when everything's perfect. How are you when things aren't quite right? Now, if I asked you, Paul, right now, I said, okay, you've been up there for about a minute and a half. You've got 2.5 minutes to go, and your timing feels off. Doesn't feel right. What's going on? I ask you, what are the probable reasons for that to happen? What would you say?
Probably tension in the body, or probably it depends how the timing is. It might be, it would probably be being overwhelmed and rushing on the shot, rushing on the timing, I would imagine.
So where does your rhythm and your cast come from? Does it come from your feet, or does it come from somewhere else?
It's initiated from the feet, but the hit is a visual thing when the rod butt is passing the perpendicular or later, and the same on the forward. When you're really getting close to it, when everything is right, it's really just about the hit at the end of the stroke.
Right.
For me, anyway, it's that final little moment and trying to adjust that, and it's usually too early. That's the most common fault in distance.
Right. Probably.
it's usually too early. So it has to
Right.
be later, and then everything times with that. So it's a conscious. So you every cast you make a new cue for yourself, right? And that can be looking for me anyway. I look at the target and then I look to see the top of the rod come into view, and then I hit it. Um,
So if I said, okay, I want you to take that information and I want you to go out today and practice. I want you to pretend like, okay, my timing is off today.
yep,
So I'm going to prepare for competitions. My timing is off. I'm hitting it too early. I want to work on, I've got 2.5 minutes, is all I have. In 2.5
yep,
minutes, how can I get my timing back? And experiment with some different aspects instead of just thinking about, okay, I'm going to hit it right here. Experiment with some different things as well. Experiment, okay, what do my feet feel like in a good cast? What is my body rotation? Where's my weight? Where are my eyes? What's my tension
yeah,
level? Come up with all sorts of things, aspects of the cast that are not changes. It's just merely an awareness, and see if you can
mm,
identify, hey, okay, there it is now. So it feels bad. Hey, that feels better. You're
yep,
preparing for that moment. Like you said, it's all about
yep,
preparation, right?
yep. And actually, for distance, you don't have to hit the first cast at 100%. So
Right.
my preparation is to hit the first one at maybe 85% and go and work, because you've got to, because you might be standing around for an hour and not casting, and you've got to find that in those 2 minutes, or in the world you've got 4 minutes,
So
so
let's
you can
talk about
have a
that for a
little
minute.
routine to get into it.
Right.
Hmm.
You know that you know you're going to have time before you get on the blocks. You're standing around, getting cold, losing your focus, going off
Yep.
into some other land. Your mind is wandering, right?
Yep.
What if you came up with a routine? You said, okay, 30 minutes before I'm to cast, I'm going to go over to the side somewhere and I'm going to go through just some dry runs, a little
Yep.
simulation practice a little bit, and or maybe I'm just going to go jog to get my heart rate up just a little bit to get things moving. And then now when I'm 10 minutes out, I'm going to go do a little of this, a little of that, instead of just standing there. Oh, hey, that
Yep.
was a good one. I like his stroke. I like his stroke. It
Yep.
really that was interesting. Look how he walked into that. Instead of sitting there doing that, actually
Yep.
have a routine for the hour
Yep.
you have. Prepare
Yep.
yourself
Yep. Yep. And train that.
and train it. Yeah, do it
And
every time you go out to
with
practice. Do it.
exactly. Well, well, that would be very good, and you can build it, because what I generally do is I say, right, you've been standing around, you've got 2 minutes, let's go, right at the beginning. But what I should really say is, before I get there, 5 minutes out, you probably can't cast because there's no space, but you can do something. We'll work out whatever that is, and then we come in and we're off. And so they can actually prepare for that. I really like that. I like that build up. And as I say, they've got a minute on the platform also to get into that space, and they should take the full minute. I mean, normally they give them up to a minute, and then everything gets sorted and it's all rushed. They should say, no, I'm not. When they say, are you ready? And they've still got more than 30 seconds, they've still got a minute left, they've still got some time left. They should say, no, I'm still getting prepared. And I think that would help immensely, and to have a routine during that. But to be honest, I hadn't thought of a routine 10 minutes out. I think that's excellent.
Yeah. So now let's just go one
I think
other
that's
place.
excellent.
The beginning of this whole process was taught to me by a couple of Olympic swimmers when I was in college. And
Hmm.
to be honest with you, I kind of made fun of it as a kid. These guys talking about all this breathing stuff, blah blah blah. And then it became part of me to the point that I think it's really the only reason I was able to play the PGA Tour for 16 years, because I was not a natural ball striker like a lot of these guys. I could hit good shots, but I had a hard time repeating it. I'm 6'8" at a time playing when the equipment didn't really fit at all, being nearly that tall. And I generated a lot of club head speed, and the equipment didn't fit that either with that if you couldn't control it. So, but this routine that they taught us, and the thing where everybody gets off, is the idea about
Hang
effort
on,
versus focus.
hang on. I'm being attacked.
What's attacking you?
No idea. Sorry, please carry on.
Okay. There you go. You're distracted. Now, how do you get back into it? Um, so they taught us a method to train relaxed concentration. For most people, that's an oxymoron. They can't do it. The harder they try, the tighter they get. You want to learn to concentrate more and relax more at the same time. So how do you do it? Well, you start off with breathing. Breathing is how you learn to relax. You do diaphragmatic breathing, and there's different type of exercises you do. One is called box breathing, where you breathe in for a count of 4, you hold it for a count of 4, you breathe out for a count of 4, you hold it for a count of 4, and you keep going. And they had us start out doing this on our backs and feeling like as you did your breathing with your eyes closed, that your body got heavier and heavier and heavier into the floor. And so you became more and more relaxed, and you felt it relax from the inside out. So your core, got heavy first, and it worked out through your legs and your arms, into your hands and your head, and everything else worked out that way. And the more you did it, if you were religious about it and actually did it, you could get where you could become totally relaxed. It's hard to stay awake. You got to make yourself stay awake. And so now you're sitting there, you've got your eyes closed, and you're completely relaxed. Now, open your eyes and stare at a point on the ceiling as hard as you can. And what will happen is you'll feel that diaphragmatic breathing you had will move up into your chest. There'll be just that little bit of anxiety, and you'll sense it. You go, wow. So now close your eyes, get your breathing back where you want it, open your eyes again. Focus like you're Superman, and you're going to burn a laser hole right through that point on the ceiling as hard as you can. And you'll feel your breathing go up. And do that until you can keep your breathing down or take your breathing down into your diaphragm. Once you did that, now sit up. Now sit up, close your eyes, and do your breathing. Okay, open your eyes. Are you still relaxed? Okay. Now focus at a point on the wall. Are you still relaxed? So you have to be self-aware. I really am. Okay, if you are, take a ball, toss it from one hand to the next. Try to keep breathing. And you'll find that as soon as you start throwing that ball back and forth, you're going to tighten up. Your breathing is going to go up into your chest. Stop throwing the ball, take it back down, throw the ball again, go back and forth until you can keep your breathing down. You can do that. Now stand up and start bouncing the ball on the wall. I mean, you can use whatever exercises or things that you want, but you get the idea. It's kind of like lifting relaxation weights. You're making it more and more and more challenging and having to take yourself back down to this relaxed state so that it becomes part of you, where you naturally, when you feel your body, if I'm driving a car and all of a sudden the traffic's hauling butt and it closes in around me, you'll feel yourself tighten up a little bit. And innately, my mind and my body will go, and everything will just relax, and my eyes will become more pierced, like I've got that laser vision, and I'll be more like this and more relaxed, just like that, because I did this drill over and over and over. Do calisthenics, sit there and do some push-ups, then sit up. So, okay, I got to take my breathing back down. So now you're on the blocks. If you sit there and practice that routine over and over and challenge yourself more and more and more, you're on the blocks, and you're going through your stuff. You got a minute to get ready, and you're going through it, and you're getting your line out, stripped out where you want it. And okay, like you said, everything's going really quick, right? Now I've got 20 seconds left. What I do? Sit there and close your eyes and relax and see your cast in your mind. See what you're going to do. Get control of everything and get totally relaxed and focused again. Feel that look in your eyes. Feel your body relax. Okay, we're ready to go. All right, I'm ready now. Take advantage of that time. If you're on the block and all of a sudden you feel everything starting to race and go, and you're like, just all right, you can literally, you should practice as part of your preparation, practice casting and breathing at the same time. So that now my breathing, instead of when I'm casting, my breathing, everything's going up here like this, and I'm getting tighter. I want to practice like this. And practice your breathing routine, your box breathing, so you can cast and stay completely relaxed at the same time. Now focus really hard on your target, or focus really hard on a field, or whatever you want to do, and challenge yourself so that it becomes, during that 4 minutes, you have a mechanism. If you sense that you're getting tight, I've got a mechanism where I can slow myself down. Even if you have to when you're stripping in the line, you made your cast, you're stripping it in. Now just close your eyes and just let's just get your breathing back down where you want it. Take yourself to your equilibrium, to where you want to be. And now you're ready to go
Yeah,
again. It all begins there, Paul.
yeah, that's fantastic. I really like that.
You can't
Talking
you
about, yeah. And how long did you spend doing that?
well, I would do I actually modified that routine even more. People want to listen to some Jimmy Buffett or some, nice relaxed music while they do it. And I'm like, you know what? When you get up there on those blocks in those 4 minutes, are you hearing Jimmy Buffett on? Oh yeah, are you hearing Iron Maiden? What's going on? I mean, you're everything's racing. You're not hearing some nice, slow, easy music. You're hearing something that's just so I trained, and I happen to like it too, but I trained listening to very heavy, loud rock and roll. The
Right.
song you have on the song you have when you're casting on the log on your distance video on SL is all. I love that song. I love it. That's the kind of songs that I like. And I was on the range warming up for the final round on the Champions Tour in San Antonio. It was the last tournament of the year. The last day I was in about 10th place, and I needed to finish the top 5 to have status to play the next year. And otherwise I wouldn't have any status. And so it's a very important round. And I normally didn't do this, but I thought, you know what? I don't care what everybody thinks. I don't care what the gallery thinks. I don't care what the players think. I put my headphones on and went out to warm up before I played. I'm using my hour before my competition. I put on my headphones, I'm hitting balls, and I'm doing my breathing relaxation routine, listening to Deep Purple, Iron Maiden, all this kind of stuff, just blaring as loud as it will go while I'm warming up. And I turned around about halfway through to my caddy and I looked at him. I said, I'm there. He says, you're where? I said, I'm in the zone. He started laughing. What do you mean you're in the zone? I can feel it. I said, I can feel it right now. I'm in the zone. And he's laughing. I said, well, you just wait. And I hadn't been hitting the ball particularly well, but I went out the first 8 holes and hit it inside 10 feet on every hole, made 5 birdies, shot 30 on the front. And now I've got a chance to win. And then I standing on the 10th tee. It's that flow state. Stand on the 10th tee, ready to hit it, and like, it's gone. It went away. It's gone. Now what do I do? So now you start playing all these mental games, like remembering all these different things. And on the 16th hole, I had about I'm tied for the lead, and I've got about a 20-foot putt up the hill. And we're wearing ribbons on our cap that day, and I felt the ribbon, and it was in commemoration of Payne Stewart, who had died 10 years earlier. And I beat Payne Stewart in a playoff in Chattanooga in a PGA Tour event many years before. And so I closed my eyes. It wasn't actually, I closed my eyes and I remembered everything I could remember about the putts that I made to beat Payne, everything what it felt like, emotionally, where I was at, all these things. I remembered all those things. And I went in, and that was my turn to putt. And I took a couple of practice strokes, and this is no kidding. I looked up, I said, Payne, this is for you. Looked back down, boom, knocked it right in the middle of the hole.
Fantastic.
So
Great.
you can use your breathing, you use your routine to get you into the zone. But
Mm,
you if you're not in there, you play all these mental games to get yourself to where you need to be.
mm,
That makes sense?
mm.
And the
Yep.
mental games are remembering things, visualizing things, doing your breathing exercises, all these different things to get you to where you need to be.
When I do my distance, I go on the third cast, right? So I breathe in, hold, breathe out, breathe in, hold, breathe out. Okay,
Right?
that's my routine because I want to be breathing out on the last cast. That's how I figure it. And if I'm breathing on every in and out in every cast, it's too much. That's my goal. The real issue is everybody gets out of breath when they're stripping line because they forget to breathe. You're working
Right.
out why am I
Right.
out why am I out of breath here, and it's because of that. But I think there should be a breathing pattern connected to that, and then maybe just one deep breath, and then you go again because obviously time is of the essence here. It is a bit frantic, and I don't know if it's better to take. I have more of the machine gun approach. I figure if I can get 7 away in 2 minutes, which is what I tend to aim for, I think I'll hook a couple up. and that's kind of
As
my
long
that's
as long
my
as
whole
you're
goal.
as long as you're able to maintain your rhythm and your timing and
Yep.
trying to go like a machine gun. If in doing so you sacrifice, you start getting quick. Like I watched a video of you, I think maybe it was 2014, maybe in the finals, and it might have been 15. I don't know, somewhere back there. And you looked a little out of sorts. You looked really that you were going too fast. It didn't have
Right.
your normal rhythm and length. It was more hurried a little bit.
Right.
I think that
I don't
I
know.
would
Who
like
knows?
you to try something for me and report back. I want you to do your breathing exercises, but I want you to start focusing on an object and feel your eyes get really laser focused and get to where you can do that and keep your breathing down deep, not in your chest, but down deep in your
Oh,
diaphragm.
I'll do that.
And then I want you to get up there. I want you to simulate you're on the blocks, and I want you to start making some casts. Not trying, not you know, there's no time limit at first. Make some casts, doing your breathing like you just said, but keep
Mm.
it deep. Make it stay down there and focus. Pick out your front and back targets like you do, but instead of just picking them out, I want you to really like you're a laser burning a hole in that leaf or in the trunk of that tree or whatever it might be. You burn a hole so you feel your eyes get really, really focused, but your breathing's got to still be down here. And now you get up there and you're like this, you relax, okay, and you do your breathing routine. One, go, go. And keep that look in your eyes, but keep your breathing deep and see if you can feel any difference. It's really not changing anything other than it's just adding an element of focus. Because like
Oh,
you said there at the end, you said, everything gets going really fast. All these things are going.
yeah.
You're the way you know that's going to happen, right? So you prepare for it, simulating all these things going on, is trying to stay in control. At the same time, you got to have a mechanism in the middle of the competition, right then. How am I going to deal with it at that moment? And distractions, you do one of two things. You learn, you don't just avoid them. You're trying to avoid them, it doesn't work. So you got your finger in a dike and you take your finger out, your toes. So you use your focus, narrow your focus so that the distractions you move them somewhere else, or you welcome them in and use them to narrow your focus. Padraig Harrington from Ireland, great comment. He said, when you're at your best, you're nervous before the shot, and you use that to narrow your focus over the ball. When you're at your worst, you're calm before the shot, and you become nervous over the ball.
Hmm.
And think about that fly casting. If you get up there and you're nice and calm, ready to go, and all of a sudden things start. Now I'm moving. Things start to speed up just a little bit, and I'm feeling this. I'm stretching it out, and you start losing focus, and now things start speeding up. You start losing contact of where exactly everything is. Timing starts to suffer a little bit. You start to panic just a little bit. It's a little bit downwind, so you're having to really make a nice back cast with a real straight fly leg to be able to punch it into that wind to straighten it out on that back cast. And now
Hmm.
you've got all these things flying through your head, and you're lost. And does that sound
Hmm.
familiar? I mean, it does to
Well, not
me.
to me.
No, not to you. It does to me. But I'd like you to, by focusing with the eyes and becoming very focused, see if you can narrow your focus so those distractions are displaced, or you
Hmm.
use them to increase your focus. It's a
Hmm.
different way of looking at it. It's a preparation, but it's embracing the moment rather than trying to avoid these things that are going to get in the way.
Yeah. 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 I think we have a
Um,
few ways of dealing with it. I mean, that I really try and own the whole area in my mind. I try to everything, and
right.
I feel that gets me there. And if I can't do that, that's when I struggle. So I really try to put myself into that situation. But I don't know if that necessarily would work for everybody. I think I've a better background because I've a bit of help because when I turned 25, I became an instructor in the UK, and I was the youngest guy in the country. And so I was asked within like 8 months to go to this angling fair, the Chatsworth Angling Fair, where there were several thousand people and have a microphone and present fly casting. And it scared, and I accepted. And then I immediately regretted it because for the next 7 months, every time I thought about it, I was nervous as hell and I really didn't want to go. And I went and it was okay. And I ended up putting myself in a situation where I did quite a lot of those and really struggled. And at some point there was did a couple of bad ones and I stopped for a long time. But then I came to realize actually the nervous feeling that you're getting, that you have this feeling of dread, is kind of the same feeling if you just feel it, you have that butterfly feeling, but you can turn it around and just see it as excitement and see it as positive and just see yourself going there and doing it really well.
Exactly.
And since then that changed how I deal with that. So I got very used to casting, talking to people, might be a few hundred, or sometimes it was a few thousand. And so I kind of got used to that. But casting without that, having to talk is so much easier. I can just perform. So the competition side where I've just got to perform is actually, I think, a bit easier than having to have all those words in your head to talk to a couple of thousand people, which is just another thing, another challenge. So I've always felt very relaxed in competition because I haven't had to deal with having to communicate with them, you know. I enjoy it now, but it took a long time. It took about 20
So
years.
yeah, no, I understand. So how can we speed that process up? I have a friend
Yeah.
that flew F4s off of aircraft carriers during Vietnam, and he's a very good golfer. And he was playing some in Europe on the senior tour, and he wasn't putting very well. He was down at the house, and his name's TR, and I say TR, when if you're getting ready to land your airplane on the carrier at night, which all of a sudden at night it gets way harder. And I said, at war, the carrier, there's no lights. The carrier's dark. Because otherwise everybody could see you, right? So the carrier's dark. And I said, in 25-foot seas, I said, are you nervous? And his voice goes up. Am I nervous? Damn right, I'm nervous. It's the hardest thing in the world it is to do. And if I screw up, people are going to die. Said, okay, you're nervous. I said, are you focused? He says, yes, I'm focused. I've got my airspeed, my attack angle, I got the ball, I got my fuel, I got all these gauges and things that I'm looking at constantly. It's okay. You all this stuff, you're calling the ball, you're very, very focused. I said, how tight are you holding the stick? Well, you can't hold the stick tight. If you do, you can't fly the airplane. I'm looking at him. He doesn't get it. So I go through it again. And the third time, oh, I see what you're saying. Because I'm trying to relate it to his putting. Right.
Yep.
And so I said, so how did you learn to do that? He said, I don't know. I think that I just always kind of could. I said, really? I said, you don't think that those hundreds or thousands of hours you spent at night in bed going through all these different situational things, seeing yourself, visualizing these scenarios, going through them over and over and over, or being in a simulator, going through these scenarios over and over and over, you don't think that played a role in that? Well, yeah, now that you say that, sure, absolutely, sure it did. I said, well, what have you been doing for your putting? Not a damn thing. So it's hard work trying to visualize pressure, trying to visualize these things. But you can do it in other ways. For instance, you could take the lane that you're casting in, and you're in practice, and you could narrow the lane by half or by 2/3 or by whatever it may
Yep.
be. Narrow the lane. So, okay, now
Yep.
here's your lane. Let's go. Now that adds an element of pressure. You could put a line of trees down the right or left hand side where if your tracking gets off, you're going to snag a tree. Adds an element of
Yep.
pressure. You could even cast under a tree at the end where you've got to keep, or have a hole in the tree or something you've got to hit. You can do different things
Yeah.
to add
Yeah.
pressure.
That's very similar to a lesson I gave today to a guy who's training for his accuracy. And I just watched this video where the goal kickers, the rugby goal kickers, would not just trying to kick it between the crossbars. They were trying to land on the crossbar, right? And actually trying to hit trying to hit the crossbar with the kick. And so I said to him, instead of trying to hit the center of the ring, what about trying to hit the inside edge of the ring? So if you can actually if you can actually hit that inside edge of the ring, then you were going to do that about 3 inches or 6 inches, and you're in. So that kind of focus, I think, would help.
The idea of progressive practice, where you start off with like I would start off with no target, no anything, just the feel of trying to get the trajectory and the contact that I wanted for a particular shot. Once I had that, now I'm gonna make it a little bit more difficult. I'm gonna try to land it in a circle. Try to land it in the circle. If my contact trajectory stayed good, great. If not, I had to go back with no circle. Once I could do it in circle, then I made it a smaller target and a smaller target. Then I put boundaries on the side. Then I would make a boundary short, like I pretend there's water short or there's water long. And so I progressively make it more difficult. But here's the secret, Paul. You don't want to, you've got it, it feels pretty good. And all of a sudden you've made it so hard that you tighten up and you lose it. The worst thing you can do is to continue to do it at that level over and over, because now you're hurting your confidence and you're hurting your technique. You got to go back to a level that you feel relaxed and you can do, and then build yourself up again. So you gradually, you build yourself up, you lose it, you go back down, you build yourself up, you lose it, you go back down, and you stair step your way up. And it's a great way to practice dealing with more difficult scenarios, but you don't destroy your confidence in so doing.
Right. Okay. I like that. I like that. It must be very, I mean, what happens if, for example, what happens if your first shot is a disaster? I mean, that's probably one of the hardest things, particularly if we go to accuracy casting and you make the first shot and you tick. I did that in a competition, right? First cast, world championships, tick, which is 0 points. Recovering from that, and I had a terrible first round. The next three, I managed to recover by the second, but I should have, accuracy isn't so much my thing. But that was a disaster right from the start. But and I hadn't really prepared for that. How would you? I mean, have you had that in golf where your first shot was in off the in the rough?
More in the rough. Yes, I was not known for accuracy, and so yeah, I've had all sorts of instances. It's called rational visualization. Is what I would do, and most people, when they visualize things, they visualize something good happening. Visualize this perfect cast. I visualized the feel of it. Blah blah blah. Well, rational visualization takes something that happens that's bad,
Right.
and then you see yourself correcting and making adjustments the way that you would like to see yourself, and then rebounding from it. So for instance, it'd be like, okay, I'm gonna close my eyes. I'm gonna visualize going through the course. Tick. Oh dang! Okay, I feel myself. I know that I'm going to be frustrated. I'm just going to make some false casts in the air for a minute. Get my breathing back. Get my body language back. Get my look in my eyes back where I want to be. I'm going to take it back. I'm going to turn it around. Now I'm back to where I need to be. Now I'm going to start focusing on what I want to do here again, and see yourself getting back into it. So you visualize the problem, then you visualize correcting, and you visualize coming out of it on the other side, how you would like to deal with it. So now when it happens in competition, you've already been there. You've already done it. You've already dealt with it, and it doesn't destroy you because it's part of it. That's one of those things, you might tick, you might, all sorts of things that you might do. I step on your distance competition, whatever. And these things all happen. So if you see them happen and see you respond to them the way you would like, now you got a chance to come back and be okay.
Yeah. It's the same like it would be like the same as casting your fly into the tree, and then tying a new fly on, and then you wouldn't cast it back into the tree again, would you? And then tie a new fly on and then whack it back into the tree. I mean, you wouldn't do that. But I believe that you did do something like that. I read on your blog that there was that you managed to hit the ball into a lake. and then you put the next shot. You hit the next shot into the lake. What was the story about? What was the story behind that?
Okay. All right. So this is the Players Championship. This is not a short story, Paul. The Players Championship is probably has the strongest field in golf. It has the biggest purse on the PGA Tour, and the golf course was one that didn't suit me at all. It was very position oriented, very penal if you got out of position, and I was not that type of a player. And I missed the cut 5 years in a row, and each year I kept telling my wife, "Screw it, I'm not going back. I don't care how much money they're playing for. 0% of any amount is always going to be zero." But I kept going back anyway, and then in 1990 I'm there. I've missed 5 cuts in a row, and I'm right on the cut line. I bogey the 16th hole. I'm on the cut line. To get up on 17 is the famous Island Green par 3, surrounded by water. And I hit what I thought was a really good shot, and it just bounced over. It just trickled over into the water. And so now half of my brain breaks apart and starts, I'm going to burn down the clubhouse. I'm going to kill everybody. The other half of it's going, no, 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 calm down, calm down. You can still get this up and down birdie the last and make the cut. Calm down. So I go over to the drop circle. I drop a ball. I hit what I thought was a really good wedge, and it skipped and it stopped right on the back edge. It trickled over into the water again. Now is when it happened. Now that good side that was saying, no, hang on, it joined the bad side. I call that a happy bead cascade. We've all got sad beads and happy beads in our head, and a happy bead cascade is when all the happy beads fall to the dark side, and you're left with nothing but this is dark. And so I took my next ball and I threw it down in the drop circle, which I should have been DQ'd, but I wasn't. And I hit it as hard as I could with my wedge, and it lacked 5 yards from going over the entire lake and landing in the 16th fairway. Now, all these people, there's thousands of people around, and they're going, "Oh my God." And it's about 5 o'clock on Friday evening. So they're all drinking, and they're like, "Oh, big man, he's lost his head. He's going crazy, Put another one down. And I chunked it onto the front of the green, and I walked up. I putted the first one. I backhanded the second one. I knocked the third one in for a 10. Okay. So I made a 6 on 17. I walked to 18T. I looked at my caddy. I said, "I'm in every ball in my bag in the middle of the lake, and I'm never coming back." So I teed par 4 right along the lake. I teed up my first one, aimed right in the middle of the lake. Boom, hit it. It's on the way. I said, "Give me the ball." I teed up the next one. The first one's just landing. Boom, I hit my next one in the middle. Yeah. I tee up the third one. And right now you're asking yourself, and so we asked him for advice about the mental game. So anyway, I got to about here on the third one. I go, "What are you doing?" And I hit this, started in the middle of the lake and sliced up onto the fairway and knocked it on the green and 2-putted for an 8. So I finished 6-10-8. I shot 51 on that side. And to this day, it stands as the highest 9 holes at the Players Championship. And every year, NBC shows it on Saturday or Sunday, the highest 9 holes. And there I am right on top of it. And guess what? I work for NBC. So now I claim that I wrote a blog about this. I claim that, there are golf gods, right? They're golf gods. And they're sitting up there and they watched all this taking place. And, "Oh, we're going to have some fun with the big man. Watch this." So the next year I come back, I'm playing like trash, no good. But somehow I survived the cut. First time in 7 years, I make the cut. And on Sunday, I'm actually doing pretty good. And I birdied the 11th hole. I birdied the 12th hole. I birdied the 15th hole. I birdied the 16th hole. And Steve Elkington playing in the group in front of me, 3 putts, the 17th. And I'm standing on that same 17th hole, the Island Green par 3. I'm standing there on Sunday with a 1-shot lead. Same guy that just went 6-10-8 shot lead. Now I'm aimed at the middle of the green. You just want to make par and get to the next hole. But I've just birdied 4 out of the last 6, and I'm feeling pretty good. And so I set up the middle of the green, and I inched right, I inched right, I inched right. And when I hit it, I was aimed right at the flag, which is 3 steps from the water. And I leaned on it, pushed it into the water, and made double. And so I ended up finishing third. And the golf gods set that whole thing up. So we're going to take this guy that just went 6-10-8, and we're going to put him up there on the 17th tee with a 1-shot lead and see what happens. And they won again. But to my credit, I came back the next year. That was 91. Came back in 92. And I played in the final group Saturday and Sunday with Nick Faldo. Ended up finishing second with Nick. So
Okay, great.
yeah, it's and the story about perception. You know, our mind is a powerful thing, and I've lived so many of these things. So I can speak a lot about a lot of this from experience. In '91, when I hit it in the water on the 17th hole, I ended up finishing third. I walked off the last green, and my wife's standing there, and she's thinking, "Oh my God, what's he going to say?" And I walked off. I said, "You know what? I beat all the best players in the world except two. That's pretty cool." Wow. So the next year in '92 rolls around, and I finished second. And I walked off the last green, and she looks at me, and I didn't say I beat all the best players in the world, but one, I said, I just don't hit it good enough to beat all these guys. And the result of that, I lost my playing privileges 2 years later, '94. I lost my card, had to go back to the school and everything else to get it back. So the impact of your perception, how you see something, is so
Mm.
powerful. You know, it goes
Right,
to, you
yeah.
got 4 minutes. You got all this time before you get on the block. You've got 4 minutes on the block. What you allow yourself or how you tell yourself, you know, our perception, we have control of it. It's not,
Mm.
we're not, reality is our own perception. You know, Maxwell Maltz wrote back in 1959, wrote Psycho-Cybernetics, and he said, your mind is like a machine. It will believe whatever you tell it if you tell it enough times. Where you go through this
Mm.
program for 6 weeks. For 6 weeks, if you tell yourself you smell like an onion, you're going to wake up in 6 weeks and think you smell like an onion. You can change your perception. You see things. Reality is how you want to see it. And it impacts so much how where we're at emotionally and our performance. And so part of preparation, part of that is being seeing yourself in these tough moments and controlling your perception. See things
Mm.
the way you should see them, not the way that bad part of you wants to. Well, screw this, screw that, the hell with him. We all have that side in us. Take
Mm.
control of it and see. It doesn't have to always be, you know, everything is great, but perceive it the way you want to. How do you want to perceive this so that you can flip it so it's something good, it's useful, or it's not distracting? Something. Handle your own perception, and that's part of
Yeah.
competing. You know, fly casting doesn't have a professional tour, but it does have things like the World Championship and some major events. And part of being a participant at that level is being professional about it, controlling your perception, handling yourself, being self-aware, taking care of those things.
What about afterwards? How do we see, how do you deal with the event afterwards and then recalibrate?
Okay, so for me in golf, and position this in fly casting, however you might want. But for me in golf, concentration, you have a pre-shot routine. You know, you said you have a minute, you have 4 minutes. In golf, you have 40 seconds to play your shot. And part of that, the first part of that is you choose the club and the shot you're going to play, the target, that sort of thing. Now, there may be an obvious club or target, but you may not feel good about it. And so you can adjust, change clubs, change shots, change shape, change something so you feel better about it. That's part of the second step, which is to put yourself emotionally in the state that you want to be, this flow or free state, or, you know, I'm excited to be here. You're on top of the mountain, you know, up there on the blocks, and everything else slopes away. You give yourself that feeling by telling yourself something, visualizing something. I used to remember quotes. Theodore Roosevelt, the man in the arenas of your place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory or defeat. Lyrics from songs, or changing lyrics from songs, past experiences like I did with Payne Stewart. Whatever you can do to try to make yourself feel like you did. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. So the first step is a club. Second step is emotion. Third step is now you visualize the shot. It's actually you remember the shot. If you get in there, you can have some words at this point if you want, a couple of little keys, but basically you remember a shot. You're not trying to create something new. You've done this before. You're trying to remember it. You remember everything about it. And now once you step into the shot, the fourth part is all words disappear because you have to be totally subconscious. And you don't want to be telling yourself like, okay, just swing to your finish, okay, nice rhythm, good footwork. Those are all well-meaning things. But your mind, if you have a simple goal of hitting this shot, is focused on that. And it can react during your swing subconsciously at an incredibly fast time frame. But if you start saying, have a finish good, you start adding these good intended things. Now you've added goals that your mind has to satisfy in addition to hitting the ball there, and it distracts. It takes away from that. So nothing else. You see it and feel it. All words disappear totally.
Yeah.
They're just like you said, that last breath, and you go, right? You don't have any words after that, do you? There's no words.
No, that's right. Yeah.
And so the words disappear, and you play the shot. All right, so 4 things. How do you evaluate the shot? You evaluate the shot not based on where the ball went. You evaluate the shot on how you did those 4 things, because you know that if you do those 4 things well, that's all you can do for yourself to give yourself a chance to play a good shot. On the other hand, if you don't do them well, then you're reducing your chance of playing a good shot. So our nature is, somebody might say, well, you just don't evaluate. Well, human nature is to evaluate. So I'm going to evaluate, well, did I get in there without fear? Did I get in there in the emotional state I wanted? Did I get in there and take all the words away? Did I have a nice picture or feel for what I'm doing? Yeah, I did all that stuff. Well, I hit a bad shot, so what? I did the things I wanted, pat myself on the butt, and go on. Had I done that, 1990, I probably wouldn't have shot 51. Like, so, but that world, that's how you want to evaluate.
Yeah. And that's for every shot. And what about the tournament? Do you replay back all the shots, or how do you measure a tournament?
Well, if you're playing professionally, by the check they give you or don't give you.
Right.
You know, off used to be, when I played, we didn't play for the amount of money like these guys are today. And you miss a cut, you don't make any money, and you lose money for the week and that sort of stuff. But I think truly what you look for are trends. You're trying to see trends. 1997, I did this thing. I wasn't happy at the beginning of the year with how I was hitting the ball. I'd been playing a fade, shot left to right. I'm right-handed, and I want to go back to playing a draw. So I started the year out. I had to hit when I practiced. Anytime I practiced, and whether I was warming up for a tournament, practicing after a tournament, or at home, it didn't matter. I had to hit 10 100-yard 8-irons, just little half swings with a little draw the way I wanted, in order to get to hit 4 full shots. So I had 10 8-irons in a row, little soft draws. I could hit 4 shots with whatever club I wanted. Then I had to go back and do 10 more in a row like that. Did that for 3.5 months on tour. Kept doing it because I felt like if I can't control the club with a half easy swing, why should I be able to control the club with a full fast swing? So that's my idea. So I got myself more and more in control of where the club was, what the club was doing, and how I wanted to apply the club to the ball. And when I did it for 3.5 months. Well, it was in April, I guess. I finished at Greensboro. I played a nice round the final day in the rain. And Frank Nobilo won the event, but I played pretty good the last day. And I called my wife. I said, I'm getting closer. Things are going the right direction. Trending. So you look for trends.
Yeah.
And I went out the next week and I won in Houston.
Fantastic.
So
that's great.
Everything is about you hear the word thrown out a lot about, I think a lot of players throw it out there not having a clue what the hell they're talking about. But the process of my routine is very specific. Your routine is very specific. Why you do well. The process of trying to evaluate afterwards events and trying to get yourself trending in the right direction. You never, if you get everything is a wave, whether it's your rod, the line, whatever, it's all a wave. Well, your performance is a wave. It's never all the way up here. It's always going like this, right? And so once you get here, start going there, and then your challenge is, how do I turn it around quickly and get it going back this way again, rather than going way down here?
Is there an off season in golf?
There used to be,
seasonal?
November, December is an off season. They have some silly events and stuff, but for the most part, November and December is off.
And how often did you play? Is it every 2 weeks or every week, like a major competition?
Well, Yeah, you have to find that's a great question because you have to find your right routine, how you perform your best. And I couldn't, if I just played two and took one off, played two and took one off, I wasn't any good like that. I played five. I tried to play five in a row, which is a lot to be away from home. But I played five in a row. And my first one, I'd be a little rusty. And the second, third would be, my best. The fourth would be starting to get a little bit tired. The fifth, I'd be a little bit burnt and cranky, and try to go through that. And then I would go home and I wouldn't play golf for 10 days or something. I wouldn't even touch a club. I'd go fishing. Fishing for me was always my getaway from competition in the game. And I learned early on that I needed that time away. If I didn't, I'm so obsessive. If I'd go out in the range and start working on stuff and working on stuff, and pretty soon I'd play myself work my way right into a funk. And so,
Yep.
and I'd get frustrated, and then it would start this, rat hole, going down the rat hole. And so I realized that once I got to that point emotionally and mentally and stuff, the best option for me was not to hit more balls, was hit no balls. Go
Yep.
fishing, hang, something like that. So that was.
And so how long? So how long would you? How long would it take? So you've got a competition coming up. You're going to tune up for that set of five, right? So you're going to start training up for it. How long out would you start preparing?
Well, you got to remember that those five would be inside an entire year. So it's not like, okay, here are your five events. Now you don't get these five again until next year. But that's the hard part about fly casting and competitive fly casting. You don't have many events, do you? We had a whole
No,
year.
no, you don't.
So that makes it
Well,
real.
in the smaller clubs there's more, but yeah, there's definitely less. But in some countries they have a bit more. But the reason I ask is like you can't stay at that top level. You're going to have peaks and troughs, and you want to be at a peak just before at the competition, right? That's where you want to be peaking. You don't want to train like you don't want to be really good 2 months out because when you get to the competition, you're not going to be good. So you have to try and time it. So I think maybe a couple of months out, you should have a break. And then maybe I generally work 6 weeks out. I'll start training and maybe I don't know how much you train, but probably a lot more than me. But I bet I'd train 2 times 2 hour sessions a day. That would be my sort of my training for a competition like that.
Well, I would be on the golf course for 8 hours or more, or on the
Yeah.
range. I'd hit balls for a while. I'd go play. I'd come back and hit balls again. I'd go work on different aspects, short game, different things. So, if I'm preparing for the end of the year, I would take time off. I'd take all of November off. I wouldn't touch a club. Sometime early in December, I was always working on something technical, and I would get out in the garage and I would make swings in the garage. I wouldn't even go to the golf course. I'm making swings in the garage with a ball on the ground because as soon as you go out on the course with the ball, no matter what your intentions are, as soon as you put a target in mind, your mind only knows the way that you've been doing it to try to make that ball go to the target. So if you want to impact change on the swing, I took the target and all that out of it and would sit there
Yeah.
in the garage and make these swings and work on my swing that way. And you
I
can
do the
impact
same.
a lot
I do
quicker.
the I
So,
don't cast down the tape measure to begin with. I just
right,
cast and
right.
relax and I only put like if I was doing 6 weeks, the first 4 weeks I wouldn't have the tape. It would be the last two. It would something like that. I would build into it.
Well, and depending on
Yeah.
what you're working on, depending on on your level and what you're working on, it's different for everybody. But you might spend the first 2 weeks in front of a mirror. You might just be
Mm.
facing the mirror, working on tracking. How can I'm going to be rotary. How can I do this? Where do I want to launch from here? Do I want to launch from over here? Where do I want to launch from? And I want to track
Mm.
good. I'm gonna be open foot distance. I'm gonna be open distance. I'm gonna go this way. So I'm gonna work on my tracking in front of a mirror and not even
Yeah.
have a line. Hold
Yeah.
the bottom rod, right? And you
Yeah.
could do something like that, or you could stand whatever. So yeah,
Yeah.
you can change your own needs. I would start in December. Technique later, latter part of December, I would start going to the golf course. And my routine, I used a progressive practice routine a lot. I'd go to the range and I'd hit some balls. I was feeling a little bit better. I'd go out on the golf course, which wasn't too crowded usually. I'd take a cart and I would go to specific holes or shots that bothered me, and I would test it. I'd take 5 balls. I would test it. Now, I'm not expecting to hit every ball perfect. I'm just trying to see what is the tendency here. Do I kind of have control or not? And if I didn't, boom, I went back to the range and I tried to get a feel for it again. If it felt pretty good, I'd go to another hole, challenge it again, and I'd do that. I'd go back and forth that way. And that would really kind of get me going. And the next step is competition. So that would, that whole process was probably about 5 weeks, something like you're talking about. And now let's go to a tournament, see what's going on.
Very
But
similar
the
then.
secret is competing is there has to be a freedom to competing where you're not so engrossed with the outcome or what someone may think of the outcome that you're free to do whatever it is you want to do. I felt an emotional attachment to having the freedom to play a shot that most people were afraid to play, or to change swing slightly or make an adjustment during. You just got dark. That's not me.
No. Sorry, light's gone. There we go.
There you go. I prided myself in being able to get up there on the court and say, I'm going to change my grip a little bit to fit this shot. I'm going to change my ball position. Most people are afraid to do that. And so I think that's a big part of it, having the freedom to allow yourself to do whatever it is you're trying to do.
Yeah.
For instance, if you're casting into the wind in a distance competition and you get up there and, you've been working on a 170 on a stopless, whatever, and now the wind's blowing and you're like, man, I don't know, I feel like this will punch it pretty good, but maybe I need to throw a couple pullbacks out there first just to kind of punch a couple through the wind, and then I'm gonna go try ahead and let a couple go this way. Just the freedom to try whatever it is that you might try, and not be overwhelmed by the moment.
Yeah. What I mean, for me, I always success was if I just really felt that I had, hopefully performed my best. I mean that was my measure. It wasn't so much about the winning or losing. That was kind of secondary. Obviously it's obviously great to win, but if I didn't throw well but won, that wouldn't be as good as throwing well but losing. I really wanted to feel that I was in. There was really hooking them up and hitting some good casts. And if somebody else stands next to me and is hooking up and it goes further, it's technique. So I that's happened to me quite a few times, and I've learned from that experience, and that's always been a good thing because it's made me a better fly caster, which is one of the reasons for doing it. I do think we can
right there. What you just said is huge, and a lot of people don't get. Failure is the stepping stones to getting better. That's how you get better, is failing. And a lot of people don't understand that. They're afraid to fail. They're afraid they're not going to do well. And that presents a lot of anxiety under pressure, or when they get on the blocks or whatever. If you're not, it's like Mike not being afraid to fall on the ski slope is part of it. If you're not afraid to fail, and you do get beat or you do fail, but you're learning as you go. See, those are your stair steps to getting better, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's really why I frame that as being the principal reason I'm there, is to get better. It's not specifically to win or anything like that. It is actually to get better. And the 170 stroke came by getting beaten. The reason I got into competition in the first place was because I got beaten by a student, So when something comes along and it happens, then if you can take your technique as far as you can possibly take it, and then somebody sticks it past you, you've got to look, well, what are they doing that I'm not doing? And then you've got to try and adapt it and see if it works for you, and play with it and learn it. That's essentially what happens. And so it's constant, massive. had a massive impact on my life, in fact, because those casts that I've learned in competition are the same casts that I use for taking shots, into the wind, that kind of technique. The saltwater stuff that you do, shots at redfish, shots at snakehead here. That's really come from the stop for me, anyways, from the stopless deliveries, which wasn't part of something I did before I got into competition. It's really come out of competition. I think one thing I was thinking about there when you were saying like have a clean break and you go angling. Excuse me. I have a clean break from casting training, casting sport, but I also go angling. So, so that is my break. So in some ways, because the sport it is a bit different. So I've always somehow got a rod in my hand doing fishing or teaching, but the actual tuning up part, I think it's good to sort of have breaks from it. Don't think I'd ever go away from not casting at all, because how would I catch fish?
Well,
Something like that.
a lot of golfers will, in their off time, will have friendly games, gambling games, and stuff at home that they play. Different sort of things. So they're still playing golf, but they're not grinding on shooting a score. They're just having
Yeah,
fun with their, which is what you do when you're angling versus competing. Competing is very
yeah,
structured. Rings, I mean, all your techniques got to be spot on. Throwing at rings. You're throwing distance, your techniques got to be spot on and timing, and you're trying to be explosive and maximum. You go angling, it's more about being creative. It's not
yeah,
making the over. It's like snakehead, you know,
yeah,
there he is.
yeah,
I want to throw this up under that branch or whatever it may be.
yeah,
Now you've got a paintbrush in your hand. The other way you've got a tool in your hand or something. But
yeah.
so that's
And actually, I think they're both very important. I think we learn a lot from that creative side, that inventive side that helps us in competition. For example, I've noticed over my courses that when I teach somebody spey casting, single-handed spey casting, who's never done it before, so it's in two-week blocks usually, or maybe after 6 weeks, what suddenly happens is they become better overhead casters. They just feel that they've got more time. If they can turn a 70 foot of line around and quite happy with it in the air, shaping it around, they suddenly realize, actually, I can pull 70 feet of line through the air and I'm not in a rush anymore. And so though, and I've also had it with even presentation cast, the little bits of control just adds to their overall casting performance in ways that just developing accuracy or overhead wouldn't have the same impact. So it is. How would that apply in golf? Say, I guess you are being creative.
Ben Hogan is probably arguably one of the best or one of the best ball strikers of all time as far as consistency. And he talked about how he developed his swing, and he talked about trying all sorts of trying things that he saw, trying ideas that he had testing them out to see how they work, testing them out on the golf course, testing them under pressure, testing them in wind, and that sort of stuff, combining different ideas, throwing some away that didn't stand up, keeping some that did, through this process, continually trying these little subtle things till he arrived at, for him, what were his five fundamentals, which is what he wrote the book about. To me, that's the fun of fly casting for me, because I spent a lifetime doing that in golf, trying to play and support my family. Fly casting, I'm not supporting anybody. I'm just having fun. I enjoy watching different people that are very talented do things that are slightly different styles. And so I want to mess with that. What's that feel like? Just like we are talking about earlier about presentations. Do you want to, you want to present with, you can do it. You pull back. You want to do a hard stop. You want to do a stopless.
Yeah.
What do you want? How do you want to shape your loop? To me, when the moment the rod starts to straighten, that's when fly casting gets really fun. It's all about straightening the rod. How do you want it? And particularly, what do you want to do with it after it straightens? What happens to it after it straightens? You want to dampen it. You want to, so many different things you can do timing wise. So in golf, I played that way also, but it always was the carrot at the end of the stick was for competition. It was going to be measured by, by how much money I made. If I supported my family, fly casting doesn't. So it's different for me in that respect.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I mean, it must be. As I said, I think I said to you before. I think that's really wonderful to have a career in sports like that. I mean, we don't really have that opportunity. We would love to have that opportunity in fly casting. We certainly don't, and it's difficult to get it in angling. You could do it. You just have to go down other avenues like guiding or coaching, or there are ways. There's been doing it for a long time, but actually directly making money from events, that's just not on the cards in our game. I think it is in pro bass, right, or something like that. I mean, it does exist in angling sports in the US, but not in fly fishing.
Well, redfish has gotten big too. The redfish series is really big. They do catch some speckled trout. Of course, the bass thing is huge. But yeah, fly fishing hasn't. Fly casting. The world's a changing place. Maybe it hasn't changed that much. I don't know, but the world these days with the internet and all this sort of stuff, people want immediate return and gratification for things. They don't.
Mm.
They want to go out. What do I do today to go do well today? When I was teaching, that was basically what do I do morning to go play good this afternoon. I'm like, wait a minute, some of this takes a little. You may have to go hit a few balls or do something in front of a mirror to get
Yeah.
used to this. And most people, not all, but a high percentage of people aren't interested in the journey. They want the end result. I enjoy the journey. The journey to me is what's cool. Yeah.
Daylight. And then we talked about fishing for quite a while, but I thought I'd cut that bit out just because it wasn't on topic, and I'm not very good at staying on topic. Fishermen aren't. Everything comes back to fishing, so we went off and talked about a lot of stuff. But I think that was so there's a lot of really good information in there. Great to talk to somebody with that sort of perspective and perception. I think so. Lots of ideas and things to play with. Thanks, Phil. Fantastic. Cheers.